Megamind is rightly one of the most beloved animated films of the last couple decades. Few movies are so consistently hilarious no matter how old you are or how many times you rewatch them over the years. And besides being possibly my favorite comedy of all time, it's also just a great story. So why did it take so long for it to get a sequel? And why did that sequel end up being so atrociously awful? I don't think I need to say much about 2023's Megamind vs. the Doom Syndicate. I mean, just look at it. For whatever reason, after over a decade, DreamWorks decided that, rather than continue their tradition of making excellent sequels that build upon the originals, like with Shrek, How to Train Your Dragon, and Kung Fu Panda, they would instead turn to the old Disney strategy of putting the absolute bare minimum of money, time, and talent into direct-to-video, or in this case direct-to-streaming, sequels to their old classics that hopefully a handful of people might check out of pure curiosity or just turn on to entertain their dumb child for an hour. And the results were somehow worse than you'd expect. But what if DreamWorks actually cared enough to give this classic a proper sequel that continued Megamind's growth from the first movie in a compelling way? Well, that's the question I'm here to answer. But before I get into it, I'm just thinking out loud here, so if you like my brain vomit, you know where the like and subscribe buttons are. Now without further ado, let's dive into what should have been Megamind 2. First, let's see what arc Megamind should go on in the sequel. In the first movie, Megamind learns that he doesn't have to be the bad guy just because society labeled him as the bad guy. He learned that he could choose to be good, and that being good is actually pretty great. However, it actually leaves a lot of room for further growth. See, by the end of the first movie, he seems to be getting the message that doing the right thing means being the hero everyone loves, always winning, and getting the girl. By the end, he's chosen to be the hero rather than the villain, but he doesn't look a whole lot more humble about it than Metro Man ever was. So in this movie, I want to force Megamind to learn that being a hero is about more than being the celebrity everyone adores, that it means doing the right thing, even when it's hard or unpopular. I want Megamind to learn the humility that Metro Man never had. And while we're at it, why don't we give Metro Man a bit of a redemption as well? So when we meet Megamind at the start of the movie, he's living the hero's life much like Metro Man did, as a flamboyant celebrity making a show for himself and basking in public adulation. However, most of the problems he solves are unintentionally self-created, as he has a tendency of being a klutz in his heroic escapades. Meanwhile, he is also seeking admission into the Guild of Guardians, this world's knockoff of the Justice League, to fill Metro Man's vacancy. But the other heroes are highly distrustful of him, not to mention doubtful of his competency and disapproving of his highly destructive methods. As the collateral damage of his efforts mounts, public opinion begins to turn against him. In his personal life, his relationship with Roxanne struggles as she feels he is becoming self-absorbed and losing himself in his efforts to be the hero that people want. She tries to teach him that true heroism isn't about being admired for your actions, it's about doing the right thing because it's the right thing, even when that doesn't mean getting all the perks. Soon, his public image and his relationship both come crashing down in a singular, disastrous stroke of humiliation, leaving him desperate to win back the love of Roxanne and the people of Metro City, and to prove he's enough of a hero to be in the guild. So he devises a plot to create a villain he can defeat to regain his popularity and hero status. Much like Syndrome's plot in The Incredibles, if much less dark. I'm sure he doesn't plan to get anyone hurt. However, his plan falls apart when the villainous force he creates, which I imagine is some kind of villainous robotic force much like Brainiac, somehow gets out of hand, becoming smart enough to neutralize his failsafes and becoming a threat he can't handle on his own. Again, much like Syndrome. Realizing how his self-absorption has led to more harm than good, he finally puts his ego somewhat aside and goes to the Guild of Guardians, seeking their help. They agree to clean up his mess, though perhaps they don't let him help them take on the threat. The fight goes bad, however, with the villains smart enough to deduce each hero's weakness and neutralize them. With no other apparent option, Megamind offers to turn himself over to the villain if he'll leave the city alone, confessing what he's done to the defeated heroes in the process. The villain agrees, but then goes back on his word once he has Megamind captured and prepares to enslave or destroy the city. All seems lost, right until Metro Man decides to join the fight, for real this time, having been seen earlier in the film to have grown more depressed in his reclusive state. I'd love to see Metro Man actually show off his super speed in combat for once, though it's Megamind's knowledge of the villain that allows them to finally beat it. In the aftermath, Megamind willingly confesses what he did to the public and turns himself over to the guild for imprisonment. But Metro Man, who the public want to celebrate as the real hero, praises Megamind for being more of a hero than he ever was, thanks to the humility he demonstrated and his refusal to run even without his godlike powers. Metro Man admits to his own cowardice and instates Megamind as a member of the Guild of Guardians in his place, perhaps going on to travel the world and use his powers for good quietly and anonymously for a change. And lastly, what about Megamind and Roxanne? Well, I imagine she comes back to him in the end after having broken up with him early on in the film, but it's not a big romantic moment. He asks if she'll forgive him, and she says she's willing to try, which he says he's okay with. It's enough to indicate that they might still have a future, but his actions still have consequences, and he's ready to accept that. So what do you think of this rewrite that's so drastic it's not even really a rewrite as much as just a proposal for a new film? Would it have been worth making? Is it still worth making? Frankly, I don't see a reason why DreamWorks couldn't redeem themselves by ignoring the second movie entirely and coming out with a third one that actually does the original justice. I don't think they'd even need to retcon anything, though there's no reason they couldn't if they have to. Heck, they could even make fun of the last movie somehow. Maybe when the guild is interviewing him and reviewing his application or whatever, they look over his battle with the Doom Syndicate and point out just how stupid it was. If DreamWorks did that, I could never ask for anything from Hollywood ever again. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments, and I'll see you next time. Until then, never stay silent.